The courtroom was tense before Judge Andrew H. Stones even entered. Pam Bondi sat poised at the plaintiff's table, her expression unreadable, a stack of sealed folders at her right hand. Word had spread that something big was about to break, something the judge wasn't going to like. When Stones finally strode in, he didn't so much sit as he claimed the bench. His robe fluttered like a black flag. He scanned the room with a smirk and leaned into the mic. Well, he drawled, Ms. Bondi. I assume your little files are more entertaining than legally relevant. A ripple of awkward laughter moved through the room, his clerks, a few defense attorneys, even the bailiff cracked a smile. Pam didn't blink. If you're ready to proceed, Your Honor, she said coolly, standing up. Oh, I'm more than ready, Stones sneered. Let's get through this circus so we can all go home. Hopefully without any conspiracy theories or grandstanding. Pam Bondi took one breath, then stepped toward the lectern. Your Honor, I would like to enter into the record a sealed affidavit from a federal oversight committee, one implicating you directly in what appears to be a secret judicial real estate scheme involving offshore entities. The smirks vanished. Judge Stones sat up straighter. Excuse me. Pam slid the folder onto the clerk's desk. You've mocked every motion I've submitted. But this one doesn't come from me. It comes from Washington. He laughed, sharp and forced. This is absurd. Do you honestly think, but he didn't finish the sentence. Because the courtroom door opened again. And 2 U.S. Marshals walked in. The room froze. Even the ceiling fan seemed to pause. The 2 U.S. Marshals, broad-shouldered, suited, and unmistakably official, stepped forward with silent precision. They didn't look at Pam. They didn't look at the defense attorneys. Their eyes were locked on Judge Andrew H. Stones. Judge Stones, the lead marshal said, his voice calm but firm, we need to speak with you privately. Immediately. The judge blinked, his smirk faltering for the first time. This is highly irregular, he snapped, trying to recover. Whatever this is, I'm presiding over a federal case right now. Not anymore, the second marshal said. Gasps broke out across the room. A reporter's pen rolled off her notepad and clattered to the floor. The defense team exchanged frantic whispers. Judge Stones gripped the edge of his bench like it was the only thing tethering him to reality. Pam stood motionless, watching. What's the meaning of this? Stones barked, trying to summon some version of authority. You can't just walk in here and, we have clearance, the lead marshal interrupted, holding up a laminated badge. Signed this morning by the Department of Justice and ratified by a federal oversight commission. Stones was pale now. Pam Bondi finally spoke, her voice even and low, I warned you not to underestimate what's been building beneath this courtroom. Stones looked at her. There was fear in his eyes now, undeniable. Then, without further warning, the marshals moved forward. The room erupted into chaos. Spectators gasped and stood. Attorneys fumbled for their phones. Reporters dashed to the back to get better angles. The bailiff looked paralyzed, unsure whether to intervene or step aside. But the marshals didn't hesitate. Judge Stones backed away from the bench, his hands raised. This is a violation of judicial independence, of due process, of click. The sound of the handcuffs echoed across the chamber like a gunshot. One marshal held Stone's left arm while the other secured the right. The judge was trembling now, his robe slightly askew, the pretense of control gone. Pam Bondi didn't flinch. She simply turned toward the stunned courtroom. This court has been compromised for years. Sealed communications, offshore kickbacks, cases rerouted to benefit personal investments. She stepped closer to the bench, no, the former bench. And now, it's all in the light. Stones was speechless. His mouth opened, then closed. His eyes darted around the courtroom as if someone, anyone, might come to his defense. No one moved. Even the defense attorneys, who had once sneered at Pam's filings, now looked away in silence. The marshals began to escort him out. Pam turned to the judge's clerk. Motion to vacate his prior rulings, file it immediately. Under Section 353, Judicial Integrity. The clerk, young, nervous, and pale, nodded quickly. Yes, ma'am. Pam walked slowly back to her seat. The gavel was still on the bench. But it didn't belong to Judge Stones anymore. As the heavy doors closed behind Judge Stones and the marshals, the silence in the courtroom lingered like smoke after an explosion. Pam Bondi remained standing. She opened the leather case she had brought in and pulled out a second set of sealed files, each one marked with a red tab and a federal watermark. She addressed the court without needing permission. These files include sworn affidavits, financial records, and internal memos from Judge Stones's chambers, she said clearly. They document a pattern of judicial manipulation tied to property auctions, corporate shell companies, and at least 3 verdicts that have been reversed due to unethical bias. The murmurs began again, this time lower, more stunned and skeptical. Pam turned toward the gallery. Some of you may recognize the names inside these folders. You've appeared before him. You've watched him ignore evidence. You've seen him laugh from the bench. She placed the stack of files on the clerk's desk. Today, that ends. From the back of the room, one of the reporters finally raised a hand. Ms. Bondi, how long have you been building this case? Pam looked directly at her. 2 years. Every step he mocked, every motion he dismissed, it all added to the evidence. Another reporter shouted from the corner. What triggered the marshals? Why today? Pam answered with calm precision. A wire transfer came through at 7:46 a.m. this morning. Offshore. Traced. Connected to a land sale he personally expedited last month. She paused. From the bench. Gasps. Audible disbelief. Even some light applause from the gallery before the bailiff called for order. Pam sat down at last. And smiled. By the time Pam Bondi exited the courtroom, the building was already surrounded. Reporters lined the steps. Camera crews repositioned their tripods. Microphones were shoved toward her from every direction. But Pam didn't stop, not yet. She moved past them, down the steps, into a black SUV with government plates that pulled away smoothly. Inside, the man waiting for her wasn't a reporter or an attorney. He was from the office of the Inspector General. Bondi, he greeted, nodding. Clean takedown. She handed him a small encrypted drive. Everything we didn't show in court. He pocketed it without a word. You know this doesn't end with Stones. I'm counting on that, she said. He leaned forward slightly. There's chatter in D.C., senators asking how you got access to federal oversight documents without going through the Judiciary Committee. I didn't go through them, Pam replied flatly. I went over them. That drew a faint smile from him. You're aware they're going to come after you now. Quietly. Behind doors. Pam didn't blink. Then they'd better knock loud. The SUV turned onto a restricted street, disappearing behind a security gate. Back at the courthouse, the headlines were already breaking. Bondi uncovers judicial corruption ring, Judge Stones detained by federal marshals, sealed evidence rock Capitol Hill, Judiciary Committee demands emergency briefing, one down. Who's next? And deep in the halls of power, names were being whispered. Names Pam already had on file. Back in her secure office, far from the courtroom cameras and press noise, Pam Bondi stood over a long mahogany desk covered in manila folders. Each folder had a name. Each name had a trail. She picked one up, Judge Evelyn Marin, Eastern District. Inside, altered case schedules, curious dismissals, sealed property deeds traced to her brother's development firm. Another, Senator Lowell Granger. Linked to Stones through offshore legal entities used to launder real estate profits. Handwritten notes suggested he had helped assign favorable judges to specific commercial land cases. Pam tapped the folder shut. 2 down, she muttered. 3 more in the crosshairs. A secure phone on her desk rang once. No caller ID. She picked up. Bondi, said a clipped voice. The Judiciary Oversight Panel just scheduled a closed session. You've been summoned. When? Tomorrow morning. 8 a.m. They won't be friendly. Pam leaned back, unbothered. Let them come hostile. I'm not showing up to make friends. There was a pause. Then, they know about the files you haven't released yet. Good, Pam said, eyes scanning a folder marked confidential, Nolan/Boasberg. Because the next drop will make today look like a parking violation. She hung up and locked the folders in a secure case. Then she whispered, more to herself than anyone, they thought Stones was the shield. He was just the front door. The room was small, windowless, and soundproof, buried deep beneath the Capitol. The Judiciary Oversight Panel didn't waste time. 8 members sat at the long curved table, each flanked by legal advisors, aides, and private security. No cameras. No media. Just power and pressure. Pam Bondi entered alone. No attorney. No entourage. Just a locked briefcase and her unwavering calm. Senator Walden, the committee chair, leaned forward. Ms. Bondi, you've set off a political earthquake. Judges don't get walked out in cuffs without shaking loose some very high branches. Pam placed the briefcase on the table, unlocked it, and methodically laid out 4 folders, each stamped, Federal Review Pending. Senator Granger, his name already on one of them, stiffened in his seat. Walden continued, trying to sound in control. We're not here to litigate guilt or innocence. We're here to question process. You bypassed proper reporting channels. You acted without Judiciary Committee authorization. Pam met his stare. I didn't need it. I followed federal whistleblower protocol, signed off by the Office of the Inspector General. Your committee's channels were compromised. Gasps from 2 aides. A sharp cough from Granger. Walden tried to pivot. These are strong claims. If you're wrong, your career, I'm not wrong, Pam interrupted. And if you're worried about my career, you haven't read the last file. She slid one more folder across the table, this one unlabeled. Walden opened it. His face paled. So did Granger's. Inside, transcripts, financial transfers, email chains. Evidence that the panel chair and the senator had both quietly benefited from judicial real estate rulings expedited by Stones, and 3 other judges Pam hadn't even named in public, yet. Pam leaned in. I'm not here to request your support, she said quietly. I'm here to warn you. Step out of the way. No one said a word. Not even Walden. Silence held the room like a noose. Senator Granger broke first. He adjusted his tie, voice low and cautious. Let's say, for argument's sake, that what you've presented is legitimate. There are procedures, Bondi. This could be settled discreetly. Pam's eyes narrowed. You're offering me a deal. We're offering the country stability, Senator Walden cut in, trying to regain control. If this gets out in full, if you name every judge, every senator tied to this, you'll cause panic in every federal district. The public's trust in the justice system will collapse overnight. Pam folded her arms. That trust should collapse, if it's built on corruption. Granger leaned forward now, whispering like a threat wrapped in diplomacy. Be smart. Let the system fix itself from the inside. Walk away with dignity. Pam let the silence settle again. Then, if the system could fix itself, you wouldn't be sitting here with your pulse climbing and your lawyers texting under the table. Walden's jaw tightened. I didn't come here to cut a deal, she continued. I came to hand you one last chance to get ahead of the next storm. She tapped the final folder again. There are 3 more judges in line behind Stones. 2 are already under surveillance. 1 signed a land ruling last week while vacationing in the Caymans. Granger's voice cracked. And you have that in writing? Pam nodded. Time-stamped. With federal GPS metadata. Walden exhaled heavily. He looked at Granger. Then at the rest of the panel. No one spoke. Pam stood. You have 24 hours, she said. After that, everything in this case goes public, redactions lifted. Then she walked out, leaving her silence louder than any threat. Back in her office, Pam Bondi watched the Capitol dome fade into the distance through a narrow security window. She didn't sit. She didn't speak. Her phone buzzed 3 times, then went silent. Message from OIG, they're scrambling. Phones lit up after you left. Surveillance confirms pressure calls to 3 circuit courts and 2 newsrooms. She allowed herself one breath of satisfaction. Then she opened her laptop. The desktop background was blank, only one folder sat in the center, domino_12_final. Inside were the unreleased names, recordings, and financial overlays connecting corrupt judicial decisions to corporate acquisitions, foreign investments, and political cover-ups spanning both parties. Not just judges. Not just senators. But donors. Cabinet-level appointees. Even someone rumored to be in line for a Supreme Court nomination. Pam double-clicked the draft upload labeled, Failsafe Disclosure, National Press Circuit. A secure timer was embedded, set to 9 a.m. the next morning. If she didn't manually deactivate it, the files would hit 47 verified media contacts across the country simultaneously. No spin. No delay. No protection. She opened her encrypted phone and recorded a short message. If you're seeing this, it means the Judiciary panel chose silence. The truth belongs to the people. It starts now. She encrypted the file and attached it to the timer. Then she locked her office door and turned off the lights. Behind her, the screen glowed quietly. Midnight 23 hours 59 minutes and 59 seconds 23 hours 59 minutes and 58 seconds 8:59 a.m. Washington was unusually quiet for a weekday morning. Inside a Capitol Hill conference room, the Judiciary Oversight Panel sat tense and sleepless. Senator Granger's tie was gone. Walden stared at a closed laptop like it was a ticking bomb. 1 minute left. She'll do it, one aide whispered. Granger looked up. Then we bury ourselves. Walden slammed a fist on the table. We should have taken the deal. 9 a.m. But nothing happened. No leaks. No headlines. No media firestorm. The panel members exchanged glances, equal parts confusion and disbelief. At that very moment, Pam Bondi stood alone in a different building, hand resting on a biometric scanner. The screen beside her flickered green, timer deactivated, 8 hours 59 minutes and 59 seconds. She had paused the release, barely. But not for surrender. Because 1 hour earlier, she had received a call from someone she didn't expect. A quiet voice. Hidden credentials. Tied to federal intelligence. You were never meant to uncover this. But now that you have, we want in. She had listened. Measured the offer. Verified the source. And for the first time in years, someone offered her not a deal, but jurisdiction. With full investigative power. Federal mandate. No political oversight. Now, she watched the timer fade, then opened the sealed authorization letter with a red DOJ crest. She smiled, cold, calm, unstoppable. The storm would not be televised. It would be surgical. And this time, it was Pam Bondi holding the gavel. 2 weeks later. No press release. No headlines. Just a quiet series of resignations. First was Judge Evelyn Marin, no explanation, no farewell letter. Then came a senior aide to Senator Granger, followed by 2 federal contractors tied to infrastructure bidding scandals. Inside Washington, it was known only as the Quiet Purge. But behind the scenes, Pam Bondi was at the center of it all, armed with full federal authority, operating under a black budget task force answerable only to a classified subcommittee within the DOJ. She walked the halls with new weight. No longer fighting for access. Now controlling it. One by one, she opened cases long sealed, files long buried, connections long denied. Her team expanded daily: inspectors, forensic analysts, digital auditors. People who had waited years for someone with the will to push back hard enough. The final scene came not in court, but in a quiet office in Virginia. Pam sat across from a former chief of staff, sweating under bright white light. His fingers trembled over a signed confession as she laid one final file on the table. "This isn't just about stones," she said, her voice even. "It's about the machine. You helped build it. Now you'll help dismantle it." He nodded. No words. No escape. The machine was still running, but the gears were grinding louder. And Pam Bondi held the wrench.